Hey guys, so today we're going to be talking about these wonderfully colourful trees here. So these are Ficus Elastica, more commonly known as the rubber tree or the Indian rubber tree. And as you can see here, they come in quite a variety of cultivars or colours. So these are a subtropical tree native to the Himalayas, Malaysia, Java and Sumatra. In the wild, these trees can get quite large. They can grow into proper trees, being many meters tall. But coincidentally, they also make great indoor plants or great house plants. And as a house plant in a pot, they only grow to about an average size of between 2 and 3 meters tall. So much more manageable. So before we get into talking about whether this is or isn't the right indoor houseplant for you, you'll need to decide first of all what sort of rubber tree or Ficus Elastica you would like. So as I did mention, and as you can see, they do come in a few different cultivars, so different colours. Their care is very much similar throughout the colour spectrum though. There are of course quite a few colours. I've got 4 of the more commonly available ones here with me. So one of the more common and much more popular ones I've found is this one here, the Ficus Taniki. Taniki is the name of the cultivar of this particular rubber tree, the colour spectrum that it's been cultivated to have. So as you guys can see, it's got a colour palette of 3. So it's got dark green, light green and white, which the white mainly outlines the leaf, and you've got a kind of a camo colour in the middle, the dark and the light green. These are actually one of my favourites. I really like this one. So second of which is the Ruby. Now this one is a dark green with a light fluorescent neon sort of pink outline. Quite like these two. I do personally like the Taniki mostly, but these are a close second for favourite. So the third one is this one. This is the Ficus Elastica Burgundy. And as you can see, it's a very dark green, almost black sometimes. Yeah, these are quite nice, and these are very common as well. And lastly, my 4th Ficus Elastica cultivar is this one. This is the Ficus Elastica Shiveriana. I think that's how it's pronounced, Shiveriana. This one isn't quite as common as the other 3, at least as far as I've seen. Maybe it depends where you're from, but for me, I haven't seen this one around that much. These are kind of a lemon lime kind of color, which quite nice, something nice and bright. Also, interesting fact about the Ficus Elastica. The reason these are called Ficus Elastica, or rubber tree for short, is because if you were to break off one of their leaves, or if you were to cut their stem, they'd secrete this thick, gooey white sap. And this white sap, many eons ago, maybe not quite eons ago, but quite some time ago, these trees, people used to use this tree's sap to make rubber. Hence the name rubber tree. Of course, we don't do that anymore, but once upon a time, this tree's sap was used to make rubber. I will also mention that their sap is toxic to animals. So again, if you have pets that like to nibble on leaves, maybe don't get one of these, or maybe keep it somewhere where your pet can't get to it at least. That aside, they're a pretty good houseplant. I'm going to go into their care and how to keep them. So if you do want one of these guys, obviously you have to decide firstly which one you want. As I've just shown, there are 4 varieties I have with me here. There's probably other cultivars around that I don't have. That aside, their care is very much the same throughout all of them. Ideally you want to pick one that's nice and healthy straight away. So get one with the maximum amount of leaves. Make sure the leaves are all nice and healthy. There's no damage. Sometimes you'll buy one of these and it'll be a single stem like this one here. Sometimes you'll buy one and it'll be a double or a triple stem like the other 3. These are a double. This one's a double as well. Sometimes I've seen triples. So yeah, they do kind of grow a bit different depending on which way you go. Whether you get a single stem or a double stem, you get a different look. Now what I mean is the single stem is just going to go straight up in a nice, neat, straight line. The doubles, they kind of get in each other's way as they grow. So rather than growing straight up, they kind of branch outwards a bit. Which if you get 2 or 3 of them branching out, it can fill up a bigger space than just a single stem going straight up. So if that's the look you want, get a double or a triple stem over a single. Okay, so you've bought your Ficus Elastica, you've taken it home. Next thing to do is to find a place to put it where the tree will be happy and healthy. Now, like all plants, they do need light to grow and photosynthesize, so you need to provide that for them. Now, these are a high lighting type of plant, but not direct sunlight. So when you get these home, you do want to place them somewhere where they're going to get very bright indirect light all day long. they can tolerate some direct sunlight as long as it's only a little bit. Meaning a little bit of morning sun or a little bit of afternoon sun for a few hours is fine. But if they're in a spot where they get direct sun for the whole day, they're gonna burn their leaves. So ideally, just a very well lit, bright room is perfect for these. Or in a window where the sun's not on them for more than a couple of hours at a time. One thing about these trees that is a little bit different to most indoor plants when it comes to darker colored ones, like say the burgundy, for example, compared to say a variegated variety like the Taniki. Normally I'll say with most houseplants that plants that just have dark green leaves or just plain green leaves and no variegations can tolerate slightly lower lighting conditions than variegated plants or plants with different cultivars where they have kind of almost unnatural colors in their leaves, like the ruby does with pink. But with these, it's actually kind of the other way around. I honestly don't know why, but as far as I've found myself and what I've heard other people that have kept these plants together say as well, the burgundy, which is the darkest colored one of all of them, which is the one you would assume could tolerate the lowest lighting. Not saying these are low light plants, they're definitely not low light plants, full stop, but usually when something's got dark green like this, you'd assume it can tolerate a little bit lower light than say its counterpart that has lighter green or variegations. But with this, it's reversed. But for some reason, the burgundy is more light demanding than the Shivarana, than the Taniki, than the ruby. Don't know why. But I found with the burgundies, when they're in a spot that they're getting bright indirect light, but not bright enough indirect light, they will just drop all their leaves. And it'll come without warning sometimes. It's not like you'll be able to kind of notice it's not looking a bit great, I'll move it somewhere else and bring it back. The leaves all kind of hang onto the plant until you accidentally bump it or knock it, and then they all just fall off from that slight disturbance. And then you're like, what happened to my plant? So you really do want to put these guys in a good spot where they get the correct lighting off the bat. You don't want to kind of muck around, moving around, testing them in different spots and seeing how they go. You want to make sure you have a bright indirect lighting sort of spot ready for them from the get-go. Saying that, I cannot stress they do all need bright indirect light. The burgundy is just a little bit more light demanding, and it's a little bit more dramatic when it doesn't get the exact amount of lighting it needs. So with soil for these guys, I recommend any sort of a soil that is well draining. Doesn't have to be any specific type of soil, just a kind of all-round houseplant type of soil, just your general potty mix, nothing too specific to anything in particular is fine for these. You do want to mix a little perlite in with the soil as well, just so you get some drainage, or pumice, either or. Same as everything else that I've kind of spoken about previous to this video. Same as a lot of other houseplants, they do like a drying out period between watering. Their leaves are quite thick and rubbery, yeah, hence the name as well, I suppose. But the leaves are very thick. So they can go for a bit of a drying out period between watering without any major issues, as long as they're not left a crazy amount of time without water. But yeah, it's a good idea to water them, let them completely drain through, let them dry out, and then water them again. You can just stick your finger in the soil about 1 to 2 inches down. If it's dry, give them a water. If it's not, leave them a bit longer. It's pretty straightforward, really. These plants also don't like cold and draft, so try to keep them away from open windows and doors that get opened all the time. So if you have a veranda or a balcony door, or you have a window that you open a lot, especially during winter, which I don't know who opens their windows in winter much, but anyways, yeah, they don't like the draft. This is another thing that can promote their leaves to drop off. So you want to put them somewhere where they don't get any draft disturbance, preferably somewhere where they don't get much of traffic going past them either. Because if you've put it in a hallway, for example, or near the exit of a room or something, where people are constantly walking past it and they're constantly brushing against it, you're going to damage it and it's going to drop leaves. Because these leaves, as I was saying, they're very thick. They're quite heavy for a leaf. And this leaf's only got one stem to keep it attached to the rest of the plant. And as I was saying, it's quite a heavy leaf already for the tree to hold onto itself. It doesn't need people constantly brushing past it, weakening the joint that attaches the leaf to the stem. So ideally put it somewhere where it's just kind of out of the way and doesn't get moved or touched or brushed against much at all. So yeah, that's kind of recommended for these, because like I said, when they're not happy, they drop leaves. This goes for a lot of different types of ficus trees. Ficus trees generally don't like being moved around. They don't like mechanical damage, so like people touching them all the time and moving them, because they're known for dropping leaves when they're unhappy. I wouldn't say they're a crazy fast growing plant either. I wouldn't say they're slow as well. Somewhere in between, I guess. You know, during spring and summer and autumn, which is the growing periods, they might grow a new leaf every few weeks. So it's a medium growth sort of plant. And while we're talking about the growing periods, which is spring, summer and autumn, those are the only times you want to fertilize your ficus. So you can use a liquid-based fertilizer and fertilize it twice a month or even once a month. Doesn't make too much of a difference, to be honest. Either or, twice a month, once a month is fine. I use a liquid fertilizer myself, and I just do it once a month for most of my indoor plants. And these will do great for you. The key is not to over-fertilize thinking that you're going to make your plant grow faster. Fertilizer is adding salt to the soil. When there's an imbalance of salt and water, and there's too much salt and not enough water, even though the soil's wet, the plant can't draw in any water, because that excess salt is stopping the roots from actually absorbing any water, and the roots actually just drown. This is a very common mistake a lot of people make. They'll just keep fertilizing and watering, thinking they're going to make the plant grow quicker, or they're going to help it recover from some damage that it's had or something, and all that excess fertilizer ends up just killing that plant so much quicker than just not fertilizing it at all. So I highly recommend just use fertilizer in moderation. Follow the directions on the bottle to a T, and only use them during spring, summer and autumn. Winter, don't even fertilize, don't even worry about it. And just generally in winter, you're not going to be watering as regular as well. So you do have to kind of be careful not to overwater in winter, because your pot won't dry out as quickly. With repotting this plant, doesn't have to be done often. You can repot them once a year. You can leave them go to once every 2 years. It honestly doesn't matter too much. These guys don't need to be repotted that regular. If the roots are slightly compact in a pot, they actually prefer it. So they'll do better for you if you let them go 1 or 2 years between repotting. And you only want to go an inch bigger in pot size each time you repot. So if you got your ficus in a 8-inch pot, go up to a 9-inch. Wait another year or two, and go up to a 10-inch. That is the best way to repot any plant. You never want to just jump up three or four sizes straight away, thinking you're going to make them grow quicker again. Putting them in an overly huge pot can result in lots of bacterial fungal problems like root rot, for example, because there's all this excess soil surrounding the plant that its roots can't get to quick enough. And that excess soil is going to hold all this extra water that the plant's not going to be utilizing, and it's just going to create an environment where bacteria can grow and infect the roots. Now these plants do need a bit of maintenance on their leaves as well, because they do have quite large leaves and they're basically just dust collectors. So every week or every 2 weeks, you just kind of have to work out for yourself how often it needs doing, depending on I suppose how dusty your house is. But you want to just wipe the leaves down with a wet microfiber cloth or a tissue or something, just to keep those leaves nice and clean, because when dust builds up on your leaves, your plant can't photosynthesize properly, and therefore it just slows down the whole growth and well-being of the plant. The last thing to really take into consideration with a Ficus Elastica is pruning and propagation. Now, as I was saying, this one's a single stem. It's just going to go straight up. If that's what you want, no big deal. But let's just say it's either gotten too tall and you need to prune it, or you want to change the shape. You don't want it to be a straight up sort of tree. You want it to branch out a bit and thicken up. So you can pretty much just chop it. You can just cut off the top of the tree, whatever length you feel you want to cut off, really. From where you've cut, it'll regrow. And you want to cut just above a node. So the nodes are where the leaves come out from. You want to cut just above the node. The top part of the tree you can propagate, and I'll explain that in a second. But for as far as just pruning goes, you just trim just above the node. And where there was one stem, will turn into 2. So I can cut this here, for example. I'll get 2 branches growing out. I can then snip them once they've grown a bit, and I'll get 2 more coming out of that one and 2 more coming out of that one, and that's how you get a thicker looking tree which grows outwards, not just straight up. But it's optional. If you want to leave it going straight up, you can. With propagating this type of tree, it's not that difficult either. With the piece you've cut off, again, it's going to grow roots from where the node is. So if I've cut the tree just above the node here, there's going to be a bit of stem before the next node. You want to cut off most of that stem. Just leave about 1 to 2 centimeters of stem below the node. If you have rooting hormone, you can dip it in that. I'd give it a wipe down first, because when you cut this, it secretes a lot of white sap. So give it a good dabbing on a tissue to get rid of a lot of that sap. Dip it in rooting hormone if you have it. Don't have to use it, but if you have it, why not? And you can just pop it in a glass of water, wait for it to grow some roots. Once it's got about 2 to 3 inches of roots, you can pot it. Some people will also just stick it directly in soil, again with rooting hormone. You just got to make sure to keep that soil slightly wet and not let it dry out until the plant grows roots. Then you can get it on a more routine watering schedule where you let it dry out between watering, and you should be sweet to go from there. Now, I have heard that you can propagate this plant from just the leaves. Like, for example, if you go and watch my previous video where I talk about umbrella trees, I'll pop a link to it at the top of the screen if you want to click that and find out exactly what I'm talking about. With the umbrella tree, you can propagate from a leaf cutting, and the leaf can grow roots. Now, I've heard you can do it with this, and I have tried it. It did work, but success rate was not that great. I had about 6 leaves propagating in water. Out of the 6, only 1 has only just now started to grow roots. So this is what I've got here. Kind of looks hard to figure out what this is. I suppose I'll explain it. Basically, I cut a piece of sponge. I cut slots in the sponge, and I poked the leaves through the sponge, so the leaves' stems are just dipping in the water. I originally had 6 leaves in here. I've only got 2 left. The other 4 just rotted away. 1 hasn't done anything yet. The other one has only just started to grow roots. So I'm going to show you that if I can get it out, because it's kind of a weird setup I got here, but okay, let's put that away. So yeah, as you can see, the leaf has started to grow roots. I'm going to let it grow a few more roots. Once the roots are about double this size, maybe 2 times, 3 times the quantity of roots, not so much length, I'm going to plant it. And theoretically, if it's anything like the umbrella tree, a little tree will start to grow out the side of the stem. I didn't actually intend on doing this. My Ficus burgundy, as I was saying, they don't do as well in different lighting, in lower lighting conditions, not as well as the others do. And it was dropping some leaves initially, and I just stuck them in water, and I've managed to at least cultivate 1. For now, it might still die on me, I don't know. But it is possible to at least grow roots from a leaf. Whether this will be an easier way of propagating than doing the stem cutting, I highly doubt it. But I'm just going to try it and see how it goes. At least for now it's got roots, so yeah, I can always update you guys on it later if it progresses. So overall, I say if you would like to have an indoor plant that is more of a tree than a plant, go with the Ficus Elastica. They come in a wide variety of color palettes to brighten up any room in your house or unit or whatever. And yeah, you can propagate them, so you can over time create more of them, which is kind of fun. Alright guys, well that's basically my video on the Ficus Elasticas. I hope I've encouraged some people to go out and get some, because I think they're a wonderful type of tree, and I just think the hobby of keeping plants is just a great thing to get into as well. So if you enjoyed this video, leave a like. My Instagram's down below if anyone wants to follow me there. I always post photos and updates of what I'm doing in my YouTube life and my day-to-day life. Don't forget to subscribe if you aren't already subscribed, and also bing that notification bell so you guys know when I upload new videos. Until then, I'll see you in my next video. Bye.